Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ari Stamatakos, and today we're back with another episode of Player Spotlight. Now, for those who haven't seen this series before, basically, this is where we go through some players who are on the periphery of the Socceroos squad, in or out of Graham Arnold's plans, and basically looking at where their hopes lie heading into the World Cup in November, and of course, the future beyond that. As you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, this episode is on Ben Folami, so let's get into it. So who is Ben Folami? Well, he's a 23-year-old right-footed, left-sided forward, left winger. He currently plays for Melbourne Victory in the A-League. He played his youth football for Sutherland Sharks in the NPL New South Wales for a year before getting scouted by Ipswich Town in England, where he made that move over in 2015, where he played in the youth team for 2 years from 2015 to 2017 before getting promoted to the first team, where he only made 4 appearances in 4 years. Within that, there was a move to Stevenage on loan in 2020, where he made 2 appearances during the COVID interrupted season. He made a loan move to Melbourne Victory at the start of the 2020-2021 season, where at the end of that subsequent season, he then got released from his contract at Ipswich and then signed a 2-year deal at Melbourne Victory. He's been a mainstay for Melbourne Victory across the two full seasons that he's played, making 36 starts across those 2 seasons, and he has started both games so far this A-League men's season as well as the game in the Australia Cup. He's made 4 appearances for Australia at under-19 level, 5 appearances at under-23 level, and he's made 1 appearance at senior level, which we'll touch on briefly a little bit later on. But yeah, that is who Ben Folami is. Let's take a look at, as we always do on this series, let's take a look at what Ben Folami actually offers on the pitch and what he offers on the pitch, like I said, in his player profile. So we've taken a look at a couple of wingers on this series so far, but when we look at Ben Folami's player profile, he really is a little bit different to some of the wingers that we've looked at so far. Of course, last episode was on Daniel Arzani. We've covered Marco Tilio as well in the past, but with Folami, you have a really archetypal and a very typical inside forward. As we bring up his heat map from last season, we can see that he likes to drift wide and then use his quick dribbling and quick feet to cut inside into those half spaces. We can see how wide he likes to pick up the ball and how wide he likes to all the wide areas that he likes to occupy. This is purely partly due to the way that he's been instructed to play at Melbourne Victory in terms of maintaining his width to allow for the inverted runs of the fullbacks. But also, this is where he does do his best work. Now, he does like to pick up the ball wide, as you can see, and then cut inside. So he's a very direct style of winger. Unlike Daniel Arzani, who we touched on last week, who is more of a creative wide player in a sense. Ben Folami is a lot more of a goal-scoring winger and a lot more of a direct winger who likes to play, who likes to get runs and make runs through the middle or get into those half spaces and really make an impact in the final third. He can also play up front as well, if absolutely necessary. So that's just another avenue of his game, which is very valuable. He stands at 180 centimeters tall, so being relatively tall in comparison to a lot of fullbacks that he'll come up against. This allows him to be a very good outball. If his team are under pressure, they can just lump the ball up to him, and he's pretty good in the air. He's not overly exceptional, but he does hold his own in the air. And this also allows him to be well equipped to winning headers, especially at the back post from crosses, as well as just crossfield balls from the right back across the left hand side. He's very capable at being a good exponent in the air, and this physicality that he brings. He's a very good athlete, so he can get on top of the fullback physically, which is something that we haven't really seen a lot from wingers that have played in the Socceroos system so far in the past couple of years. He's a lot more of a physical winger and a lot more of a winger which suits the modern style of football, which is requires a little bit more physicality, especially in wide positions, due to the way that centre-backs and fullbacks are starting to develop physically. He can match it with some of those more physical wing-backs, which is going to be very good, especially at international level. Now, while his deficiencies in terms of his technical ability, in terms of that, he doesn't really offer a lot in terms of playmaking, like we saw with Daniel Arzani, who was a lot more of a playmaking winger. Ben Folami doesn't really offer that, but standing at 5'9", I think he is, at 180 centimeters tall, he's a very good dribbler for someone that size. You'd expect a very good dribbler to be 5'6", 5'7", plays low to the ground with good agility. Well, Folami has that good agility, has that good dribbling ability, despite being relatively tall and despite being able to be physically capable against centre-backs and against fullbacks. So this is a real attribute of his game and a real trait that has allowed him to excel at A-League level in the past, especially last season where he made his name. Now, He's quite good in front of goal. While he hasn't scored an abundance of goals in his career so far, we can see that whenever he does score goals and whenever he does get chances, he does look pretty comfortable in front of goal. He does look like he's able to take the chances well. He doesn't really snatch at chances, and he can be a very good exponent in front of goal once he gets the chances that he needs. Now, when we take a look at some stats from last season, he had 3.44 successful dribbles per 90 last year in the A-League, which was the second most for the league. Now, that just goes to show just how good of a dribbler he is, just how dangerous he is with the ball at his feet, and especially when he's isolated his direct opponent. When he's one-on-one with his direct opponent, it's hard to stop him, because when he gets going, he's very, very good. And another stat which is pretty good for someone of his for a player of his caliber, I should say, he's 0.3 big chances created per 90, which was the third most for Melbourne Victory. So that just goes to show just how important he was to that Melbourne Victory team last year, just how much of an integral attacking cog he was to that Melbourne Victory team. But that is what Ben Folami offers on the pitch. Now let's combine both his Socceroos career to date and his future, because he hasn't really made a whole lot. He hasn't really made a big impact in terms of his Socceroos career to date. But let's take a look at where his future lies in a Socceroos shirt. So as I just mentioned before, we're going to combine his Socceroos career to date and where his future lies, because I think he's only made one appearance for Socceroos, as mentioned at the top of the show, and that was in the 90th minute against Japan back in March of this year. So pretty unfair to kind of judge him on that game. He only had one touch, so we can't really analyse that game in any capacity. But when we look at where his future lies now, we've spoken about this on the last episode with Daniel Arzani. There is quite a healthy competition for spots in the wingers department for the Socceroos. Now, as mentioned last episode, you think Martin Boyle and Awer Mabil will be the likely starters on either wing for Graham Arnold's side, with Matthew Leckie being thereabouts as well, either being the main deputy or even starting up front, or even replacing one of those two on the wing. So you have those three who are your main wingers, and then probably in the next rung below, you have Daniel Arzani, Craig Goodwin, Marco Tilio, or even Guan Cole, as well as Ben Folami. Now, when you take a look at those five, if you include Folami, those five players in the rung below, you'd assume that Graham Arnold would probably take two, maybe three maximum, because that would mean that if you take the three of Boyle, Leckie, and Awer Mabil, I should say, there's three already, plus the three strikers you'd assume he'd take. That means there's six. So you'd assume that at least two, probably three at the absolute maximum of other forward players that he would take. You'd assume Craig Goodwin, because of his versatility, he can play left back, he can play left wing back, he can play on the left side of midfield as well as playing on the left wing. You'd assume he could probably go. And then it's a competition of spots between Arzani, Tilio, and Guan Cole. Now, Arzani's start to the season has been pretty good. There's been a lot of hype around him. Marco Tilio, despite not getting a lot of game time for Patrick Kisnorbo, has shown his talent, especially last season. And Guan Cole, well, we all know the talent that he possesses. But when you look at Ben Folami, he's a little bit of the unsung hero in a sense, or a little bit of a dark horse, or he's the biggest dark horse of the lot there, because what he offers is a little bit different to what the other players offer there. He offers a direct style of play which the Socceroos have lacked. I think Martin Boyle is probably a similar player to Ben Folami in terms of both players are very direct, both are looking to score goals, both are looking to get into those advanced areas. So when you have two players that are quite similar, it's pretty easy to just like flip them in terms of Boyle can start, and then maybe 70 minutes in, Folami can come on, and then they'll offer the same role but just with fresher legs. So that's something that Graham Arnold could look to do in Qatar. Now, it'd be tricky to see where he starts. I don't think Folami, if he were to go, would start any games. He probably wouldn't even make an appearance off the bench. It would be surprising to see him getting a lot of minutes. I feel like it should be expected to see him get at least a few minutes, especially if Australia were to chase the game. If they're behind, or if it's a draw later on in the game, you can expect Folami to come on there. But he's registered one assist so far from his two games, playing off the right-hand side. Now, we've mentioned that he played predominantly on the left-hand side as we showed last season, but with Nani coming into that Melbourne Victory side, he has been shunted on the right-hand side. Now, while this might at first glance be a little bit of a red flag in terms of, well, he's been moved out of his preferred position, how is this going to impact his form? I think you can look at it from a positive perspective in terms of he now offers that versatility. He can play on the left, can play on the right, can even play up front if absolutely necessary. So maybe he can offer something that the other players can't in terms of that versatility department, as well as the physicality department as well, which we've mentioned. International football is a very physical game. The World Cup is going to be very physical. and France, Denmark, and Tunisia are going to be looking to get on top of Australia physically. So Ben Folami coming into that side, who offers, while he's not like the biggest physical presence, while he's not 6'3", 6'4", he does offer a little bit more physicality than what the other wingers offer. So it could be interesting to see whether or not he does get on the plane. I think he should probably make the extended squad. Whether or not he makes the cut to Qatar is a different story. I think it comes down to his form heading into the tournament, heading into the last couple of weeks of the A-League before the squad is announced. So it's going to be a big couple of weeks for Ben Folami if he wants to go to Qatar. But if he does go, I think he'll be a very, very valuable asset and can be a little bit of a dark horse in terms of what we could expect from him. He can definitely do some damage if he's given the opportunity. So yes, that is it. Thank you all very much for watching the latest episode of Player Spotlight. This was on Ben Folami. Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel. See you guys next time, and goodbye.